Hello world, welcome to the 250th, number 250 climate change emergency protest. And this is September 7th, 2023. Next week will be number 251 climate change emergency protest. That'll be on September 13th, somewhere around there. So this is number 250. This is nothing to be proud of. No congratulations. This is very, very, very sad. I mean, I started this stuff in 2018. And these talks and everything all the way down from the square in Gettysburg to around wherever. And it became unsafe to do these protests on a continual basis out in public because the reaction on the street and from cars and people getting all mad at me for whatever reason trying to save their lives became untenable. It really became unsafe. So I do these broadcasts from various places around Gettysburg on the battlefield and at home and things like that. So this last July that happened, this is September, July 2023 was the hottest month ever in the history of recording temperatures and things like that. But they think it was the hottest temperature, or the hottest July, the hottest month ever in 120,000 years. Then August came, and that was the second hottest month ever. So this trend is happening at a faster rate, and it's not a good thing. And partially it's El Niño's to blame, but I don't think El Niño's kicked in to full extent yet. And this summer has been the hottest summer ever. The last 3 months have been the hottest 3 months ever. So right now you got in the United States, I hate talking politics because it just divides people because everyone has an opinion and everyone gets so enmeshed in their various politicians. But, you know, the election's coming up next year. Trump is leading the Republicans and he says climate change is a hoax, as do many of them, or they're too mealy-mouthed and wussy to stand up and go, yeah, this is being affected, the climate is being affected by human-induced climate change with carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and all the various spin-offs from that. And they're too wimpy. They call it a hoax. Please don't discontinue listening because I'm going to hit both sides. They call it a hoax. I mean, what kind of idiot would call it a hoax at this point? I mean, it's absolute stupidity. And if your politician is saying that, there is a reason behind it. And it involves oil and greed and money and things like that. Then we're over to Joe Biden, another person who's enmeshed in the oil situation because it's all about the economy. And he went in front of Wall Street when he was running for election and he told them that things are not going to essentially change. Everything's going to hold the same. Things are going to stay the same. They're going to essentially stay the same the whole way through. And he's right. He's authorized drilling in Alaska. He's authorized free sales in the Gulf of Mexico, auctions. He's authorized over 6,000 drilling permits on federal land when he said he wasn't going to authorize any. He authorized the Joe Manchin pipeline from West Virginia to North Carolina, which is natural gas, which is actually methane. And then he authorized the completion of Line 3 from the Alberta tar sands all the way through to Wisconsin. It's unfathomable what's going on, and these people are out of touch with what's happening, or they are in touch and they don't care, and they just want to make more and more money, and eventually that will kill us. We're seeing people die now around the whole world, and especially in this country, United States. You got heat waves, you got hurricanes, you got tornadoes, you got floods, you got everything going on, and people going bankrupt, farmers committing suicide because they can't pay their bills. It's just things spin off in a weird direction that you don't expect. And food prices have gone up ridiculously. And this is all a result of climate change and greed and oil and things like that. And what Biden did, President Biden, I hate that term, he declared climate change, the emergency he's supposed to declare. He has not declared a climate change emergency. But he told a reporter, practically, I have declared a climate change emergency. Well, practically is not declaring a climate change emergency. This is a political game, and the people in that party allow him to get away with it. Oh, he's a good guy. The other guy's bad. And then the other party goes, oh, he's a good guy, and the other party's bad. They're both bad. Okay, their policies will kill us. They are killing us right now. Rack them up every day or every 3 weeks. There's some serious event that happens throughout the United States and then around the world. Greece is having massive floods after they had the massive fires. But these are the things you don't see in our media because they don't report such things. They're so enmeshed with the politics and getting the next interview, and people in charge that own the company are meshed with the politics and making money and things like that, and they're not reporting the news. This is unfathomable what's happening. We're going to die, okay? I'm going to die. You're going to die from climate change. It comes down to it. If cancer doesn't get you or something else ahead of time, or a car wreck or whatever, you're going to die of climate change. Most likely, if you're under age 70 and you live a normal life in the United States, at least you can expect to live another however many years, you're probably going to die of climate change. I hate to say that, but the policies that are being enacted right now are murderous policies. And unless we do a massive, and this has to be a historically massive change in policies in the direction we're going, and this is more, this is bigger than all the wars that have ever been fought in the history of humanity combined. Okay, not just World War II, not just World War I, not just all these, 100 Years War and all that stuff. This is bigger than all the wars combined. Okay, this is the action that needs to be taken, and it's not being taken because you and me aren't putting the proper pressure on the politicians to get it done. We're not throwing them out. We're not getting in their faces. We're not saying to the media when Joe Biden says I've practically declared a climate change emergency, the reporter didn't fight back and go, what do you mean by that? And that's not declaring a climate change emergency. I practically am going to be in the Olympics. I practically am going to have $1 million in my bank account. Well, I'll practically fly to the moon, with my wings. Come on. So what's going to happen is you're seeing it now. Tens of people at a time were dying. In Maui this year, you had hundreds of people dying at a time, or close to 100. Eventually, what's going to happen is you're going to see thousands in one shot die, either through flood, hurricanes, tornadoes, famine. You've seen people in Africa dying by the hundreds of thousands, dying from climate change and famine and things like that, and the outbreak of civil war that happens as a result of that. And eventually, instead of just hundreds or thousands, you're going to see millions die at a time. All right, entire regions are going to get cleared out. South America or Central America right now is basically uninhabitable. You're seeing the migration out of there, and we, in our wonderful Christian attitude, are blocking people at the border from coming here. There's more than enough to share. The billionaires are holding on, and trillionaires basically, are holding on to money that they easily could part with. They could get rid of half. If you're a trillionaire and get rid of half your money, you still have $500 billion. Oh, it's so sad. They only have $500 billion. Come on. Really? Are you going to let these people continue on this way and have utter greed and just have everything? And then us poor people are going, can I have the crumbs, sir? No. This is just ridiculous what is happening with capitalism. Capitalism, it's not capitalism. You know what it is? It's capitalism for me and my wife and you and everyone else, but it's socialism for the very rich. They get tax breaks, they get favoritism, they get laws written in their favor, things like that. They get support from the government, they get subsidies. The oil industry is getting $11 billion or $11 million a second in subsidies. Can you believe this crap? I mean, come on. This is, and they're making record profits. Well, why are we subsidizing them? Why are there oil industries? Why at the edge of town here on the east side of town is there a gas station being built when we're supposed to be on electric cars? Things like that. Why on the west side of town have they ripped down a forest and put up storage units? A whole old growth forest. They ripped it down on Route 116. Drive west to you local people and take a look just out of town. They ripped down a whole entire forest. You got housing developments going in all over the place. This is insanity what's happening with our country. We throw out food. We don't compost. We don't make new soil out of it. It goes to the garbage dump. We have one-use plastics and things like that. We throw it in the garbage dump. And plastics are made out of petroleum. Yeah, there's got to be a better method as to what's happening. Trade routes, you got shipping. Yeah, some of it is cleaned up somewhat. But all in all, shipping creates a whole amount of soot and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Driving cars, we're a car culture. What's Biden proposing, and Trump not so much, but electric cars. Okay, there's no talk of mass transit. Okay, this continues the car theory, the car mentality in this country, rather than mass transit. And my car is sitting in the driveway 23 hours a day. Yeah, I'll drive it for maybe an hour a day, whatever, to go to the store or do whatever I need to do. But the other 23, it just sits there. There could easily be a carpool situation with these self-driving cars or mass transit nearby. I walk up to a bus stop or a transit stop, take a train into whatever and then a train to wherever. Come on. What's going on? This is nuts. So we don't need cars in our individual cars in our driveway. Okay, have one car, not two cars like some people do. There's neighbors here that have 3 or 4 cars in their driveway. It's like crazy stuff, you know. Just have one car, and then to have mass transit. These self-driving cars come by, pick you up, take you downtown or whatever, and then they return back to their satellite parking area, and they'd be constantly used. And you'd pay a fee every year. You know, you're paying $300-400 a month in auto payments. You could pay that half that amount, and the areas with mass transit would make out very well if you paid $200 a month towards that, and the guarantee that you were transported wherever you need to go. So we're at hundreds of people dying at a time in some places. Thousands will come. Then it'll be millions, and people will not know what happened. We're all being profoundly affected by climate change. We haven't been able to go outside that much because in the afternoon it gets up to close to 100 degrees in September the last 3 or 4 days. Now it's going to cool down and it's going to go back to whatever, and people will return to their normal lives and forget about what happened. But I'm going to talk about what's going to happen eventually in a second. But right now, with the tens dying at a time, hundreds dying, thousands or millions, you know, 10 million people die a year of pollution from carbon dioxide. People have asthma, whatever, they just die from it. People are dying from drought. What's coming is extreme floods. You're seeing that all over the place. Fires, you're seeing wildfires, things like that. Just places catch on fire for no reason. And they could go, oh, it's an arsonist. But the conditions are there. Or there's the wires in Maui that came down, Maui in Hawaii, came down, hit the land, and they blame it on the electric company. Yeah, there's faulty electrical poles and things like that and wiring. But the conditions were there to cause the fire, which is climate change. Now, if it falls on a wetland, it's not going to catch fire, most likely. But if it falls on dry soil or dry grass and things like that, yeah, it's going to catch fire. Then you got your wildfires. So you got pollution, you got drought, floods, fire, hurricanes. There's a hurricane developing in the Atlantic. Most likely won't hit here, but it will possibly hit northern Canada, northeastern Canada, or even Maine in the United States. And that thing's going to be a Category 4 when it hits. And they're not ready for that kind of stuff. You got tornadoes. Tornadoes spin off from hurricanes, tornadoes in general. You had people dying down south. We're going to start seeing tornadoes again when the cooler air comes in and it mixes with the hot air, causes spin off, and then you get tornadoes out of it. So you see famine going on throughout Africa and around the world. Food insecurity. There are tens of millions of people that are food insecure right now, meaning they're teetering on the edge. They can't afford to pay for their food. They can't get food, things like that. You got people on fixed income in this country on Social Security, and I guarantee you they're eating dog food at this point because many of these old ladies, their husbands die, they just have a Social Security pension, and that's all they can do. All right, this is a sad fact. You got homelessness in this country. We got tens of thousands, millions, I don't even know the number, of homeless people in this country, and yet the billionaires have tons of money. They could easily feed them. Oh, you can't have that. Where's the profit in that? They should get a job. Many of the people can't work. And you know what? Why not provide a situation where they get on their feet, and once they get on their feet, they're motivated to get a job or do whatever they need to do to help society. Maybe not get a job. Maybe just do volunteer work. We could use volunteers all over the place. But if we do volunteer work, we're taking jobs away. No, volunteer work creates more jobs. If volunteers offering to redo this or that, then it creates a better society. Downtown, I talked about this issue with the parking garage and the 3 apartment complexes going downtown Gettysburg. And it has nothing really to do with you, but it has everything to do with you, because what they're choosing to do, this huge open lot, they're going to put in apartment buildings, okay, rather than a park, and then a greenway around Gettysburg and a greenway through Gettysburg, and have a nice atmosphere in there. So eventually what happens is you get these apartment buildings, you get a heat island effect, you get crime eventually because people will move out, and apartment buildings end up going one way downtown, and people get desperate for money, and it's just the circumstances. That's the way it is. They can't get jobs, things like that. The downtown then starts having crime, starts getting out that Gettysburg's not safe. Then all of a sudden you got a ghost town who is founded on tourism, and all of a sudden you can't figure out why the merchants are going out of business, because there's no longer the tourists that there used to be. Things spin off in a feedback sort of loop that you don't expect, and things get worse and worse and worse that way. Feedbacks usually don't go for the better unless you try force them to get better, such as a park downtown and greenways, and that would be a feedback loop to the benefit of the community rather than the other way with an apartment building. So 2023, as I said, July, August, and September have been June, July, and August have been the hottest ever. So that's 2023. Now, what's going to happen in 2024? Starting now, this summer, and then feeding all the way through. In Bolivia, for example, right now is 100-some degrees in their winter. That's not supposed to happen. So in 2024, it's going to get even hotter. Okay, this is going to be a result of the El Nino and whatever, and the sunspots, the sun activity increasing, things like that. But what essentially it comes down to is people will be dying. A lot of people are going to be dying this summer, next summer coming up. And we won't know why. No one will tell you why, because the media isn't telling you. Your politicians aren't telling you. Only people like me, who are looked upon as being nuts and being radicals right now, are telling you. I'm not a radical. Back in the 1970s, I would have been looked upon as being normal, just an average person telling you what's happening in the world, protesting here and there. In fact, I would probably be less than radical because I'm not going out on the street with groups of people, because there aren't any groups of people, and protesting. Vietnam War, you should take a look on YouTube, the Vietnam War and all the protests, things like that. This is what used to happen. This is unfathomable to me, what's happening, and it makes no sense to me, the lack of action. Friends, family, people I see in Gettysburg, no one cares. They think things are going to go normal and back to normal, and the government will protect you. Maui is showing that the government's not protecting you. They had Pearl Harbor, and they had an Air Force base within 100 miles of what happened in that town, Lahaina, in Maui on Hawaii. 100 miles away, Pearl Harbor naval base and a massive Air Force base. Did you see them going down in droves and saving these people or helping them or feeding them, transporting them away? No. Your government is not going to be there for whatever reason they give, and excuses are like a-holes. Everyone's got one. Okay, so the government is not going to be there. They're showing time and time again, oh, we're going to be there. Well, they're saying FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association, or whatever they are, is almost out of money. So they have no money because we're spending it all on war. Our military budget is out of control. We're nuts about what's going on in the world. No talks of peace in Ukraine. No talks of peace from Russia and Ukraine. You know, just have at it, do a nuclear thing, and just end it all then already. If you're going to keep dragging this out until everyone makes a profit, until we're down to the last Ukrainian, then we'll declare peace at that point. So 2024 is going to be horrendous, what's coming. You know, get yourself ready. You name it, all those things I named, pollution, drought, flood, fire, hurricanes, tornadoes, famine, food insecurity. Good luck with that. You know, let me know how that goes with you. But that's what's coming our way for 2024. It's going to be horrendously hot. It's going to be, and then all the spin-offs happening from that, all the feedbacks as well. I'm not even talking about the feedbacks today, things like that happen with that, with extreme heat. And what's happening with this heat, like we had in July and August, there's a delay involved in how it affects the feedback loops. You know, it takes, once the heat happens, it takes a while to affect the ice, then the ice melts, and then all sorts of things, permafrost, things like that happen. So this is number 250 climate change emergency protests. Next year, August 2024, during the worst time of it all, is going to be number 300. And things will be dramatically different by then. Remember this talk. Things are going to be horrendously different by that then. But most likely you won't remember this talk because you're going to be too worried about surviving. Someone you know is going to be profoundly affected by climate change. Profoundly. And maybe someone you know will die. Maybe hundreds of dozens of people die that you know. I don't know. Hopefully not. But there are going to be people that you know are going to be profoundly affected by climate change, whether it's homelessness, migration, homeland loss, things like that, starvation, loss of house, things. Someone's going to be profoundly affected, did you know? So that's where we're headed right now. So that'll be August next year, 2024, number 300 for me. This is number 250. Next week will be number 251. That'll be on September 13th, 2023. Catch you then.